For today's video, I'm going to be using cotton yarn by Sugar and Cream, a 425 crochet hook, some scissors, and some measuring tape. Before we start, you're going to measure the widest part of your body, and then you're simply just going to adjust the measurements to your size. Something else I want to mention is what type of material to use while making a vest. You can use cotton yarn like I am in this video because this is really good for the summertime because it's lightweight and breathable. But if you want something a little bit more cozy and warm, feel free to use acrylic because it's perfect for that. I'm going to begin from the bottom to the top, so I'm going to start off by making the waistband. You can add more or less chains to make this part wider and thicker, but just remember that number so that you can repeat it for the arms and the collar. So I'm going to start off by making a chain length of 9. Once your chain length of 9 is done, I'm just going to single crochet my way down because I'm going to be doing single crochets on the back loop. That way there's a little bit of stretch and also gives texture to the sweater. Once your first row is done, you're going to flip your work, and in this immediate stitch, I'm just going to go straight in, grab the yarn, and make a single crochet. Now I'm going to make single crochets in the back loops of the stitches until I have one stitch left. So you see these two lines, I'm going to go in the one behind it. So go in between the stitch, grab the yarn, and make a single crochet. Go in between the stitch, grab the yarn, make a single crochet, in between the stitch, grab the yarn, and make a single crochet. And now repeat this until you have one stitch left. Now that I have one stitch left, I'm going to be using both loops for the first and last stitch of every row. This is going to help you maintain a clean edge, and it's going to look a lot more straight. Now you're going to repeat the same steps back and forth until you reach your measurements. So one last time, you're going to go straight into the stitch and then do back loop single crochets until you have one stitch left. And then on the last stitch, I'm going to make a single crochet on both loops. And now you're going to repeat this back and forth until you reach your measurement. This is what my finished waistband looks like, and notice how clean and straight the edges are. My waist size is 32 inches, but I ended up making this 34 inches so that it's a little bit baggy. But once you have this done, you're going to fold it in half. You're going to make sure that there's zero twisting. After you fold them up, you're just going to slip stitch your way up. Once you finish your slip stitches, this is what it looks like from the outside, and this is what it looks like from the inside. Now I'm going to begin by making the cluster rows, and I'm going to be doing it every other row that sticks out. So I'll be adding a cluster here, chain 1 to skip the space, cluster here, chain 1 to skip the space. I'm going to place the yarn in, so I'm just going to go straight through and then fold the yarn and bring it forward and then chain 2. Now I'm going to make 2 double crochets in the same spot. So you're going to yarn over, go inside the gap, grab the yarn, pull once and twice, yarn over, go inside the gap, grab the yarn, pull once and twice, and then chain 1 in between. And then you're going to be adding 3 double crochets in this spot. 1, 2, and 3. Then chain 1 again, skip 1 spot, and then repeat adding a granny cluster. So now you're going to repeat this back and forth until you finish the row. I'm almost done with my first row, so I'm just going to chain 1 and slip stitch 3 times. So 1, 2, and 3. Then you're going to chain 2, 1 and 2. You're going to make granny stitch clusters in between the gaps. You're going to continue making rows back and forth until you reach underneath your armpit, and then we can start decreasing. This is what my vest currently looks like, and I'm currently at 11 inches, and this size is perfect for me because it's just around my waist, and this part is really close to reaching my armpit. So now I'm going to start decreasing the top so that I can make the armholes. So now I'm going to make one of the sides first and then show you how to do the second one so you can attach it to the first side. So this is what the top portion of my vest will look like, and it's going to be filled up with a ribbing later on. And now I'm going to show you how to do the other side. Personally, I ended up decreasing on 2 rows, and then I had a normal row, and then I extended it to the part that goes on my neck. To mark this off, you're going to fold this in half and put a stitch markers on the side, and you're going to skip this gap on both sides, and you're just going to focus on the middle. This is because this part is going to be in our armpit, and it's just so there's less fabric in there. Since we're skipping this gap, it's basically a decrease. So now you're going to feed in your yarn, and just like before, you're going to make clusters until you reach the other stitch marker. Now that I reach my stitch marker, I'm going to chain 3, and this is going to count as our first double crochet and also the chain 1 in between. So 1, 2, 3, flip your work, and now you're going to continue making granny stitches in between the clusters, and then you're going to finish off with 1 double crochet at the end. My first decreasing row is done, so now I'm going to decrease one more time, and this may vary per size and per person. You might do more decreases or just no decreases at all. So now to decrease one more time, you're going to skip this stitch and go into the next gap, feed your yarn in, chain 2, and repeat the same thing we just did. So you're going to make clusters in the gap, and then on the second row you're going to finish with 1 double crochet. I just finished my second decreasing row, and now for the third one, I'm not going to do a decrease. I'm just going to follow along the yellow row just because this thickness is perfect for me and I just don't want it any smaller. So just like before, you're just going to feed in your yarn, chain 2, and then continue making clusters back and forth. My third row is done, so now I'm going to do this part, and the reason this part is so thin is because since I'm going to add a ribbing, it's about 1.5 inches wide, so I need room for the ribbing itself, and also the hole needs to be big enough where my head can slide through normally. For this part, I'm only going to make green clusters and then come back when I'm at the purple part. I just finished my green rows, and now I'm going to move on to my last cluster row. So you need to do 1 row first, and then on the second one is where you attach it to itself. But for this to work the right way, you need to flip your work. That way the stitches are inverted and it's in the right direction for the joining part to work. So I'm just going to do 1 row first and then come back for the second one. Now that my first row is done, you're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, flip your work, and then you're going to slip stitch on the top chain. Once you've done that, you're going to make a cluster in this gap, and then to attach these together, you're going to slip stitch in this gap and then make a cluster in the front. And then lastly, you're going to slip stitch again, and you're going to make 1 double crochet here. And then you simply cut it off and tie it off with itself, and this is how you join it seamlessly. And now you're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Now that our clusters is done, all we have left to do is the ribbing and also get rid of the loose ends. And to get rid of the loose ends, you're just going to flip over your work, and I'm going to show you how to get rid of them. So for the bottom part, what I like to do is I'm going to grab my hook, go underneath the stitch and pull it through, and then just tie it off with itself. And then the parts that don't have another string to tie off to, I'm just going to go underneath the stitch, and then I'm going to split the yarn in 2 equal pieces. So now I have 2 and 2. One part is going to go underneath, the other one stays on top, and you simply just tie it off and cut off the excess. So now you're going to repeat these 2 things for the rest of the vest. Once you finish cutting off your loose ends, you're simply just going to flip your work back around. Now we're going to start the ribbing. I just finished my neck and arm ribbing, and now I'm going to show you how to do the last one. To start off, you're going to begin in this gap over here that's under the armpit. That way the seam is also in the bottom. So you're going to begin by making a knot. Once the knot is in place, you're going to place it forward so that you can crochet over it and you don't have to weave it in. Then you're going to grab your hook and make a chain 1. Once you have a chain 1, you're just going to make single crochets all around like normal. Personally, in the gaps in between the stitches, I like to add 2 single crochets, and you're just simply going to repeat this all around until you finish all of the stitches. I just finished my round of single crochets, so now I'm just going to slip stitch and then I'm going to make a chain length of 7. And that's because I want to make the arm ribbing a little bit smaller than my neck and bottom ribbing. So now just chain 7. Once you have your chain length of 7 done, you're going to slip stitch your way down and you're going to end up with 6 single crochets. If you're a beginner, I recommend marking this exact stitch because now we're going to slip stitch and then come back to this one to work our way up and down again. So once you have your first row, you're going to skip this stitch, which is holding the chain, and then you're going to slip stitch in the following 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. Once you have that, you're going to flip your work and skip these 2 stitches and go into the third one. So flip your work, skip the 2 slip stitches, and then single crochet your way up till you have 1 stitch left. Once you have 1 stitch left, you're going to go through both loops just like we did earlier. So now I'm going to show you guys one more time. You're going to flip your work and go straight in, and in the back loops you're going to make single crochets until you reach the bottom. Then you're going to move your stitch marker and you're going to skip 3 stitches. This first one, which is holding the chain, and then the following 2. So slip stitch 1 and 2, flip your work, skip the first 2 and go into the third stitch. And now you're going to repeat this back and forth until you finish the cuff. I'm almost done with my ribbon, but as you can see, I don't have any more space to slip stitch into, so I'm just going to slip stitch once, and then I'm going to fold this in half and then slip stitch my way up to close it off. Once that's done, you're going to put your hook underneath a stitch, and then you're going to split the yarn in half so you have 2 equal parts. One part goes underneath, the other one stays on top, and you simply just tie it off and cut off the excess. This is the final result, and I think that it came out absolutely adorable, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next week.